Hi, everybody. Carrie and I wanted to invite a very special guest today, Mike Rizzo. Mike is in charge of the marketingops.com, which is an agnostic community for every marketing ops professional. His group is, again, agnostic. So there's members from HubSpot community and Pardot community and Marketo community. So when he surveys all of his members, he gets great insights about commonality, challenges they're seeing, and opportunities for development for all marketing ops professionals. So, welcome, Mike.
Thank you. I'm excited to join you both. I was like flattered. I was like, oh, sweet. I would love to come on the show. That'd be super fun. You two are powerhouse in my eyes, and so I'm stoked that first of all that you're doing this together, and second, just seeing how this is all coming together has like been really fun. So thanks again for inviting me.
Thank you, Mike. So, today's question we have is: should there be a MOPS certification? I don't know who
Do
wants
you
to start with
do
this.
you
Let's
want me
let's
to
go to
start?
Mike first. I like the general overview.
Can I? Okay, so let me set the stage for everybody for just a moment. Our very first summer camp that we ever hosted was in Atlanta, over at Lake Lanier. I opened the whole room with basically the exact same question, and then we did it again in Seattle just a few months later that same summer. And I will tell you the results were mixed, and I think we might hear mixed responses today from what you hinted at earlier, but at the time, it was an interesting question because I really, having gotten my start in marketing operations, and I came up more on the HubSpot side of things. I really didn't know the power of Marketo until just a few years ago. I had used Pardot before as well. Um, I was like, gosh, it really feels like the things that I'm interested in as it relates to stitching together a startup's tech stack sort of expand beyond just this like platform that I sort of anchored myself onto at the early stages of my career. I was like, it'd be really nice if people understood the value of marketing operations in my role because they're like, oh, that's the guy that sends the emails.
Hmm.
And I think for a lot of us, we've been referred to as sort of button pushers, right? And it's like we just like make the things. And I vehemently was like, I just remember a moment in time where I was like, I think I even said this to my boss. I was like, I don't want to be a button pusher. I want to be a lever puller, right? Like
Mm.
I want to activate the business in a new way. And so, as you might imagine, my response to the question is yes, there should be a certification and it should be tech agnostic and it should stand for what it means to be a professional in this vocational practice area that isn't tied to just one piece of technology, but does position the value of what it means to be a professional in the field so that you can confidently walk into a room. And when someone says, what do you do for work? You could, you know, sort of foreseeably hold up a thing that says, like, I do this, right? And you might not have a paper, but the idea is like, just look at this and you'll have a better sense of how I can help your company do the things that it's trying to do. But it's taken us, I don't know, close to a decade to get there, which I think makes sense, right? Like this space has evolved. So yes, I think it should exist. I can certainly unpack a whole lot more about what we're working on in that regard, but I do want to hear your thoughts from Carey and from you, Danielle.
But Danielle, you want me to go? We're
You
working on our
go. Yeah.
transitions. I just want to say, like, I completely agree with you and support what you're saying. That being said, I think there's an element of maybe I'm looking at it more from a practical standpoint because I came up into marketing operations first through graphic design, then through general marketing, and then into marketing operations. And this has been an evolving question in the graphic design community for a long time because graphic designers also have a skill set for the most part that could benefit from a certification. And there's some strong industry groups. AIGA is one of them, American Institute of Graphic Arts. And so it's been a big question. And one of the barriers to doing a certification is kind of the overhead of having a certification. Like there's definitely a cost involved with it because in order to have a certification that means something, and as I'm talking through why I think we shouldn't have it, it makes me think maybe we should have it. It would elevate the role, but it's going to become, it needs to be multifaceted. We can't have marketing ops only deciding what makes a certification. We need to have sales leadership, IT, marketing leadership, and CFOs helping craft the discussion about what skills are general enough to give the certification, but useful enough to indicate a person has the skills. Because a person doing marketing operations at a small company using HubSpot is wearing a lot of hats. Their skill set is going to be very different from a person doing marketing operations at Google or AWS or any of these larger tech companies. So I think that knowing that, we need someone to spearhead it, and it has to be something that outlives the person who spearheads it. It has to have this like continuing on life cycle, so that if you start it, Mike, which you would be a great candidate to do, how do we build something that sustains your input on it? How do we get the right leadership to craft what an exam would be? Who performs the exams? What do we do when someone's out of compliance? What does it cost? I mean, those are all the thoughts that I have, which doesn't mean we shouldn't have the certification, but I think explains the barrier to why there is not a certification now.
Any more thoughts? I have all the things that I could share. So
It's funny you went down that avenue, because having worked in educational training, providing financial credits for financial professionals, and when I was at MSK, we also gave chief certified medical credits for people keeping their medical. I just came from a law firm. There's CLEs, which is again for the accreditation for legal. So each one of those industries, once you've established that, it's usually a very basic thing. Like it's showing you continue to learn, and it makes it actually very approachable past passing the bar or passing your medical exam to practice. So, I do love the idea, Carey, of that diversified. And I do think that's what's missing from a lot of folks who are in the role today. Like they don't understand all the impacts of how their role is supporting the organization. I am very pro it. I mean, I, think about leadership people who are CMOs and VPs of marketing who don't come from our background, and they don't, one, know what we could potentially provide to the organization, and they don't know what to be looking for to see if candidates that have to do the technical work are qualified. So I think that there needs something to help them. Even recruiters are going to have a hard time seeing if somebody truly can do the marketing operations job that's presented. And in a marketplace like this today, it's really hard to then narrow 500 candidates down to say these are the 10 you should screen. So those are the reasons why I do think it's a really important piece. And I think post creating one, the barrier for maintenance would actually be lowered, because there's so many existing templates we could, follow from other industry areas or practice areas that would help us.
Yeah, a good example might actually be like, I might be speaking out of turn, and if there's a project manager who wants to correct me, please do. But the PMP certification is a level of certification for a project manager that shows you have those skills, but it's not required in the same way a medical license is required. So it could be the optional thing that you have, kind of the stamp of approval.
Yep. Yep. I love this. What a amazing like full circle thing for me on this side. And for those of you who are watching this, like Danielle's like kind of privy, and Carey might be kind of privy to the idea that like we were headed down the certification path. Like I've been pretty public about the idea that we want to go build this thing, but there's like a lot of intention that's being put into this right now. And the way that I describe it to folks is that what marketing wants to become when we grow up, so to speak, is the certification body, not too dissimilar of the PMI to the PMP certification. And so it was fun for me to hear you actually draw it all the way back to this idea of the PMP certification, because I do believe that there are sort of like core principles that make you a really strong marketing operations professional that gets you outside of a specific tech ecosystem. But before I go like into sort of any of those little aspects and sort of like continue to argue my point of as to like why or what we're trying to work on, Danielle, you were talking about some of the sort of aspects of what it might look like to have like a retained certification and things like that. And where my brain ended up going was, you know, part of the challenge today. Oh, you were talking about recruiting for the role, right? And making a hire. Part of the challenge today is we, unfortunately, we all get pigeonholed into like, that's the Marketo, person. And so I'm going to call them because they're the Marketo person, right? Or that's the HubSpot guy, right? And so I'm going to call that guy. And the reality, like, and that's great that you know a platform so well that they're like, you really know this and I can lean on your expertise. But if you have a desire to step outside of that, and a lot of us do, not everybody does. Let's be real about that. Like, not everybody does. You just want to be like really good at this like couple of things, and that's fine. Where we don't want you to get off of that track. But if you do have an aspiration to start to move off of being the insert tech company guy, gal, person here, we want to create an environment for you to do that. And we want hiring managers to stop saying, if you don't have HubSpot experience, I can't hire you.
Right.
Like, that's just like, that's silly. Like, I'm sorry, but I get it. I run an organization. I want to be efficient with my time and my hires. You do want to find people that have sort of been there, done that to help you see around corners. All of those things are absolutely true. But you can find a hungry person who understands infrastructure, technology, and object orientation and how marketing automation fundamentally works. And I will bet you bottom dollar that they'll move just as fast inside of a 4 to 6 month time horizon as anybody else. It's just going to take them just a little scotch longer. And by the way, they're going to be learning your whole business the whole entire time you're there anyway. So like as they're unpacking your unique sort of go-to-market motion, they're just going to go figure out how to apply that to the technology that they might not be the most proficient in yet. But I really would like to get out of this like mentality of I have to hire somebody who's been there in that platform before. Like, it's probably a pipe dream, honestly, but it would be nice if we could get there. So
I do have a follow-up question for you on this because I had a very interesting conversation with somebody at a networking event recently, and her team she inherited was a Pardot team, and they transferred to HubSpot and took quite some time, 2 years, to finish the transition to HubSpot. So, there must be characteristics or parts of your program you're thinking about that would help keep or at least fast track certain team members in that case to succeeding in that new platform versus, also identifying people who maybe want to stay, as you said, for that track, stay on that Pardot train and potentially decide to find a different role.
yeah, it's a good question. I think our responsibility when you kind of step back and you look at the vocational practice and you said, well, what does it mean to be a professional in this field, and how do I validate that person has the skills to think like a insert type of role here, right? And then for us in this case, it's a professional in marketing automation and marketing technology. Those are fundamentally different sort of ways to think about how to engage with a professional in their field. It's not really our responsibility to make sure that as a tech agnostic organization, right, that like everybody can go learn HubSpot. Like HubSpot does that. They do that really well. They actually have a wonderful academy for it, right? And I think that if an organization wants to have the right people in the role, they want to have the people that think in a manner that their brain works that way. They can go learn these things.
That's more, yeah.
Deploy them into an environment that says, here's the resources that you get to use because your brain works this way and you thrive on this. And the reality is like people like all of us here on this chat today, that's how our brains work. Yeah, great. Give me those resources. My natural instinct is to Google how to solve a problem before I pick up the phone and call somebody, right?
Yeah.
Like those are things that a lot of us do. And so for us, like, I appreciate the notion that maybe there's an opportunity for us to create a little bit of a translation layer. I mean, Carey, you and I were just talking about this in the community, right? Like,
Right.
what is the list called in HubSpot versus Marketo or whatever? And we were
Right.
doing some of that translation. I think that stuff is really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people at least can then frame their, oh, okay, I was a HubSpot person, now I'm going to go to Marketo. I kind of get how these work. Those little translation docs, that's good documentation. That's good educational resources. And I think we could do that for
Yeah.
sure. Probably need to do that, actually, more of it. But I want our certification to be more about, at least what Daryl Alfonso and I are working on is creating basically like three different levels. And as I kind of said a moment ago, like, there's a world where you absolutely should like stay comfortable in, and you don't necessarily want to continue to like move into this like business strategy category. It's just not attractive to you. You're not interested in it. It's just like event planning for me. Like, I don't love planning events, right? Like, other people really love that. And I know that I would rather have somebody else do that because that's their passion. And so for us, it's like, all right, level one, just like stay sort of like what you might think of as more of like the traditional four pillars concepts, right, of marketing operations. So for those of you that don't know that, go Google four pillars of marketing ops. Wonderful initial groundwork laid by the Atumos group, and then iterated upon by Daryl later on, and then kind of going stair stepping our way into levels 2 and level 3, where you start to pick up skills that allow you to speak the language of some of your leaders and some of your business language that we don't learn along the way. And I'm happy to like go unpack more of that for you, but like at a high level, that's kind of the structure. And from a continued education perspective, it's basically on demand webinars and workshops. You could think of our events that we're hosting as ways to say, hey, I'm still learning and maintaining my credentials. But it's totally optional, right? It's not like a requirement. And hopefully you get to a place where people go, oh, I know what you do, right? Because we get the buy-in from the community. Carey, I found it really interesting, though. I want to go back to what you said a moment ago, and I don't want to hog the whole conversation. I've taken a lot of airtime. You said that you kind of felt like CFOs and salespeople and stuff kind of also need to be contributing to that. I I love that idea, but they don't know what we do already.
I
So I'm
know.
like, how?
Well, I think this is the conversation that we have to have because, to a degree, we're in a bit of a pickle. Let's be honest. The group that kind of grew up when Marketo and Eloqua and HubSpot were kind of thrown on the market, no one expected you to know it. So if you were fortunate enough to work at a company that rolled it out, bingo, you got skilled in that. I was one of those people that was lucky enough to learn Marketo that way. We've advanced 12 to 15 years since then. People coming up out of college, people coming up more junior in their career, there's not a real easy way to learn those tools unless you work at a company that has them. So it is truly the old adage of like, must have experience to get the job. Well, how do I get the job to get the experience to get the job? So when I say we're in a pickle, we don't have a great track to help bring young people up to become good, true leaders in the organizations and carry the torch. At the same time, we've all been in the weeds. So I don't want to say we don't speak the right language, but sometimes it's very hard to explain how important something is to another person without it being real weedy. Like, I need you to understand the table structure that we're dealing with here, because you spend most of your time when somebody says something like, well, I don't know why you can't just run a report that shows me this, that, and the other. And you're like, well, hold on a second. That's 5 different platforms. There's no cross, so I feel like there is like this weird, almost like a generation of marketing ops leaders. And the knowledge needs to go both up and down in order to give this profession longevity, respect, and understanding. And so I think I'm probably switching my track of like, should we do this or not? It makes me think like we should take ownership of
Yes.
developing the language around this. And then we should be the ones, just like we should be the ones in an organization, to talk to the CFO and say, like, hey, tell me what metrics matter to you when we're forecasting the next 3 years of growth, because I need to know that now, right? So if we lead the charge, then we are like, people don't fully understand our role. And I don't think I always feel bad because I have a friend who's a speech pathologist. And if you want to know a job that's not well understood and super important, speech pathology is one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not alone.
We're not alone. And we're not, curing cancer, launching rockets, we're sending emails.
Totally. There are other jobs that do some really important things in the world.
Yeah,
that
I sometimes
also
get upset when I
understands.
hear people complain a lot, because I'm like, all right, pump the brakes here. We're doing okay. Yeah. But I think that it's really important that we are advocates for the role, advocates in the organization, and that it doesn't come off as like complaining or being a bottleneck, but being a trusted advisor and saying, like, if you want to reach those revenue goals in 3 years, here's the staff we need, here's this. And we're not taking for granted that these are financial investments. And so there's going to be a bit of risk associated with that, just like there would be with anything. But we need to be the ones to kind of start the conversation so we can maneuver and mold what we need to be a leader in the organization and to be seen as a leadership role, like, throughout the business world.
Yeah, I love it. So you said all the same words that I say all the time.
I was mirroring you. No, it is true, right? Like we all feel this because we know this is super hard. Like, there's nothing that sucks more when someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn, like, hey, I really want to get a job in marketing operations. Is there any way you can help teach me Marketo? And I'm like, I would love to. I can't give you an access. Like, I have no sandbox with which to show you. I mean, there's so many things that are barriers to this. And if we don't find ways to clear those barriers, our job will get rolled into something else.
Yeah.
I do think that there's ways to at least teach the mindset of SQL coding and of, thinking through, even though like each system has its own wording, you can give them the basics of like what to start thinking and how they can start elevating that. I think honestly, we're all going to start moving towards AI. So I think the biggest thing is to start getting them to learn how to build context and how to engage with an LLM to understand. And I feel like we should give them like fake, dirty databases of like 15,000 rows and be like, tell me where your challenges are. Why could a personalization not work? I mean, there are things that you can probably do with people without accessing the specific tools that give them the awesome foundation for them to then go into a tool and not feel so overwhelmed. Yes, they all have nuances, and yes, there's things that can make them run more efficient. And hopefully there's somebody that can mentor them or they have access to their trainings. But I think that's where the basic strengths become, is like getting those core foundations.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So I'll kind of give you where my brain was at before Daryl and I started to team up and like mash together some of our concepts. And so you use the word foundations, and the literal document that I'm able to look at right now in terms of our certification vision ended up with sort of like 4 core tenets. And if we have to, we'll refer to them again as pillars, because I don't know what else to refer to them as. But in these tenets, I said, hey, there's the foundations of marketing in general. And this is like really fascinating about marketing operations, is that you have to be sort of, for those of us who have been around a little while, we've seen like the T-shaped marketer concept come up, where you're broadly skilled and then like deeply, focused on one particular area. Right. And so to be a successful marketing operations professional, you sort of have to have a foundational understanding of pretty much all of the go-to-market practices that are out there, right? SEO, SEM, paid ads, inbound, outbound, all of these things, ABM, ABX, all these things, just to understand it fundamentally, because the technology supports a lot of those motions. And so you have to kind of get the concepts of how it all works functionally before you can apply technology to it. So foundations of marketing. The next foundational layer is, okay, how does the technology relate to each other? So this is databases and integrations. What is an object orientation? What does that even mean, right? How do I think about how data is stored and accessed? What is an object? What is a contact object versus a lead object? And I don't like, how do I break that apart? We've been around long enough now that we just generally understand how those things work, but we can teach people these concepts, right? You can get broadly skilled in marketing. You can get broadly sort of aware of foundational practices around databases and integrations and how systems work. What's an API? How does that work? And then you get into the next layer, which is the foundations of product management. So this is where I take a shift. I still borrow to some of the commentary you were making earlier, Carey. I think it was you. I'm still borrowing from concepts that exist in the market, but I'm saying, hey, really at the end of the day, your job in marketing operations is to build a roadmap of capabilities, aka features, not too dissimilar from that of a product manager at a SaaS company building a software product. Your job is to interview customers, understand their pain points, their needs, what the engineering capabilities are, and what that roadmap might look like to be able to deploy a new feature that impacts revenue or usability or what have you. And so what I'm proposing now is to say, what does it look like to be a product manager? How do I conduct user research, both internally and externally? How do I survey the landscape of my capabilities or my features or my technology so that I can deploy a roadmap that supports my business's needs, right? Tell me your goals over the next 4 years in terms of growth and revenue trajectory. I will try to figure out how to stitch that together into a product roadmap broadly across the entire go-to-market stack as a product. And then pillar 4 is, and this is like my last one and my favorite one, because Carey, you actually already talked about it. It's how do you speak the language of finance, right? What if somebody says to you revenue recognition and you don't yet understand what that means? And then if they further said cash versus accrual and you've never heard those terms before, you should have a basic understanding of just like really simple financial acumen. You don't need to balance books. You don't need to be an accountant, but you just need to understand how a business thinks about growing and how they recognize that cash and that customer acquisition process so that you can articulate and have a really good conversation about stitching together a product roadmap that has databases and integrations that is broadly supportive of any go-to-market motion that a company decides it wants to place its bet on. Because every company is going to do it different. Some of them are going to do ABM. Some of them are going to do SEO. Some of them are going to do a mix of all these other things. And you have to be there to sit there and go, hold on, we don't have the tech for this. Or we have some of the capabilities. If you want to do that, here's the investments you have to make. I mean, these are all the things that you were just saying too, Carey, right? Like, it's just like, let's put structure around them. None of that had Marketo in there, right? None of that had HubSpot. None of that had any of the other tools, but it gives you a foundational operational place to say, when you want to make a hire for a marketing operations professional, you want somebody who has maybe achieved this level of thinking, because they're going to look at your go-to-market motion and say, I can apply a architectural framework to help you achieve it. Modern marketing and go-to-market does not happen without technology. You need a leader to do that. That leader comes out of marketing operations, like full stop. That's what I want to happen. So it wasn't full stop.
I was like, could we actually full stop right now? I feel like this conversation, it's so interesting because it pulls in all of this stuff, but we don't have to end it right now. We're longer, but I do think full stop, like what you're saying, this idea of like, there is no more. I mean, I always say this, like marketing operations is marketing, and marketing is marketing technology. Like there's, when someone's like, you need to learn digital marketing. I'm like, we've been doing digital like what is not digital marketing?
Yeah.
Like what? Tell me, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, even when we're having face-to-face conversations, there's going to be some sort of digital footprint in an ideal world, right? Like no one wants to send their sales rep off to have a nice lunch with someone and have it not be tracked in Salesforce. So that's right there, digital marketing.
Yep.
It's very interesting. I really like that. And I came in with one mindset, and I'm basically switching.
Switching. I love it. If we can convince somebody in the span of 15 to 20 minutes amongst a conversation of two really intelligent people, for me to be able to say, hey, here's where my head's at. If we're getting some head nods and we're headed the right direction, that's a good thing. I mean, it's not set in stone. We're going to figure this out. Look, this is where my brain was. I just told you that I teamed up with Daryl on this. We have an entire board of people that we're pulling together. It's not going to just be Mike's brain that came up with all of this. So to your point, Carey, like we want to involve other people to make sure this feels like it's a buy-in and it's accredited and it's valued. But also, it is our job as a group of practitioners, not marketingops.com, the entity, but our whole community, to come together and say, this is really important stuff. And here, if you want to know what we do, this is what we did. We established these principles. It's not going to take you much to learn it. If you start to head nod because you get that we went and learned these 4 pillars or whatever we end up calling them, they'll hopefully the next time they're asked who's in charge of your go-to-market tech stack, they're like, I know where to go. You know, the CEO and the board, they're like, oh yeah, I know who does that. Because today it's a silo after silo after silo.
Danielle, this makes me think, related to what we talked about last week, these things are becoming, this is actually probably a pivotal moment in the industry for us, because if we don't harness this, like what you just said, this has nothing to do with platforms. This is all a mindset of like being inquisitive, being resourceful, being able to document experiments, being, whatever it is. There's a whole bunch of like key, pillars and tenets, like you said, but I'll kick it back to you, Danielle. Won't this become even more critical? Because shouldn't marketing ops be a real strong player when organizations are rolling out AI?
Oh, yeah, we should be. And honestly, I think we are the best to help with AI. So I think we can close out the conversation. I do think we need this certification. I do think there's an amazing challenge with understanding what we do, because so many companies use marketing operations so many different ways. But if all of us have a core foundation, and however that company needs to utilize us, at least we have a consistency, as opposed to, you talk to somebody from company X and they're doing just these 2 parts of marketing operations, and you go talk to this person in company Y and they don't even do those 2 things. You're doing 3 other things that nobody else is doing at all. So I do think that it's really important and needed for our, profession to keep growing and to keep adding value to a company. So thank you so much, Mike, for coming in. This was a really great session. It's one of our longest, but this was great. No, it's okay.
Thank you for having me and letting me share some of my thoughts. And I loved that we all got to have this conversation. And yeah, stop. For those of you that are watching, don't ask your marketing ops person to be like a paid ads manager. Like, that's not our job.
Our parting words. So.